Hello everyone, you're welcome to today's class, and we're going to be studying the supremacy of God under the topic Christian religious studies. Now, of course, you know what it means to say something is supreme. Supreme means it is sovereign. You already know the meaning of sovereignty. Supreme means that when you say a being is supreme, it means that it is the highest in a hierarchy or among several of its kind. So the supremacy of God in this context will mean that God is higher than other gods. Now the God we are referring to here is Yahweh. Yahweh. Alright, now Yahweh, God. Now when we say the supremacy of God, we mean that God is higher than other gods. And the supremacy of God was shown by Prophet Elijah. By prophet who? Prophet Elijah. Now, Prophet Elijah was a man from Tishbe. He was a Tishbite. Now, Prophet Elijah showed the supremacy of God in the reign of King Ahab. King Ahab was the son of Omri. I've told you in our previous class, and I told you that he was married to Jezebel, who was the daughter of Ethbaal. And King Ahab and his wife Jezebel, they served Baal. And they made Asherah. They had an altar of Asherah. They served Baal. Are we together? Now, the Bible says that Ahab was so sinful. Ahab worked in the footsteps of Jeroboam. Remember Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who attempted to carry out a secession bid, who attempted to rebel against Solomon, a rebellion that was futile, a rebellion that was not successful. Remember Jeroboam, who successfully divided Israel into two halves, and one part containing 10 tribes went to him. He was not faithful in the sight of God. He was not a righteous king. And the Bible says that Ahab worked in his footsteps, and Ahab atrocities were more than every other king of Israel that lived before him. Ahab was so sinful that before his time, no king was as sinful as Ahab. I believe you understand me. Now, King Ahab worshipped, like I said, Baal, and he had an altar. They made Asherah, an altar of Asherah. Now, the Bible says that it was in his reign that Elijah showed the Israelites that indeed God is supreme. Now, before we talk about how Elijah showed the Israelites that God is actually supreme, let me now tell you about who was ruling Judah when Ahab became king of Israel. Remember, after Israel was split into two, Rehoboam, son of Solomon, went with 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, and Ahab went with 10 tribes. The 10 tribes that went with Ahab were called Israel, but the 2 tribes that went the 10 tribes that went with Jeroboam were called Israel, and the 2 tribes that went with Rehoboam, son of Solomon, were called Judah. Now, in the 38th year of King Asa, you know King Asa, when you hear about the story of Asa and Jehoshaphat, King Asa. Alright. Now, in the 38th year of King Asa's reign over Judah, Ahab became king of where? Israel. Remember, Israel was no longer together. Judah and Israel were now separate. Ahab became king of where? Israel. And Ahab ruled Israel for 22 years. Now, because of the sins of Ahab and his wife, and the sins of Israel in like manner, Elijah prophesied that it will not rain in Israel for some years. It will not rain in Israel for some years. And there was a great famine in the land, to the tune that Jezebel, wife of Ahab, wanted to kill Elijah for prophesying doom on the land. And Jezebel also attempted to kill the other prophets of God who lived in Israel, to the extent that they all had to flee from Israel. Elijah fled to Brook Cherith. He fled to Brook Cherith, where God sent ravens to bring bread and meat for him morning and evening. Now, it was also in the reign of Ahab. That Abiram, that Hiel of Bethel, rebuilt the city of Jericho. Remember, after Joshua destroyed the city of Jericho when the Israelites fled from Egypt, he placed a curse that woe betide the man that will rebuild the city of Jericho, that at the cost of his first son will he lay the foundation of Jericho, and at the cost of his last son will he set up the gates of Jericho. Now, the man that eventually rebuilt the city of Jericho was called Hiel of Bethel. Now, this man, when he was laying the foundation of Jericho, he lost his first son, Abiram, in accordance with the curse of Joshua, which was made valid by God, of course. Now, he lost his first son, Abiram, at the laying of the foundation, and at the setting of the gate of Jericho, he lost his last son, Segub. Now, back to the matter. Elijah said that it will not rain for some years, and of course it did not rain. And Jezebel was attempting to kill Elijah, attempting to kill other prophets of God, of Yahweh. And one servant of Ahab, who was the leader of the other servants in Ahab's household, his name was called Obadiah. Now, Obadiah was righteous in the sight of God, even though he worked in the palace of Ahab, unrighteous, his wife Jezebel, unrighteous. Obadiah was righteous. Now, the Bible says that when Jezebel attempted to kill the different prophets of God, Obadiah hid 100 prophets of God. Obadiah hid 100 prophets of God in caves. In where? Caves. And Obadiah hid them in what? 50s. When you hear 50s, it means that they were divided into two. They were kept 50-50 away together. And so on one occasion, during the drought, there was no food for the Israelites. Their animals as well were dying of starvation. So Ahab called Obadiah that he should go on a search mission for pasture for their animals. And so on Obadiah's way, he met with Elijah, and Elijah told Obadiah that he should tell Ahab that he is here waiting for Ahab. Obadiah was scared, thinking that by the time he goes to tell Ahab that Elijah is around waiting for him, remember, they were all in search of Elijah because it was the reason for their famine, for their drought. Now, Obadiah was scared. Obadiah told Elijah, "Don't you know I worship God like you, that I am a servant of the Most High, that is Yahweh? Didn't you hear that I kept prophets of God in caves in 50s? Why do you want to kill me? I am not your enemy, I am for you." And then Elijah said that he will not disappear from that place, that he will be here waiting for Ahab to come. So Obadiah believed Elijah, and so Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told Ahab that Elijah was waiting for him. And as Ahab got to where Elijah was, Ahab referred to Elijah, "Is it you troubler of Israel?" And Elijah told Ahab that "I am not a troubler of Israel. Indeed, you are the troubler of Israel. That it is because of the sins that you and your subjects, or that you have made your subjects perpetually commit. That is why this thing this famine and this drought and this hunger and the death is befalling Israel. But then Elijah said he had a solution, that there should be a contest, a bout, a fight between him, prophet of Yahweh, and the prophets of Baal. Now there were 450 prophets of Baal. 450 prophets of who? Baal. Now Elijah said the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, that they should enter a contest at a mountain called Mount Carmel. That they should enter a contest at Mount Carmel. That both of them should erect altars. You know, altar. That both of them should erect altars. That is, the prophet of Baal should erect altars for Baal. He will erect an altar. That is, the prophet of Baal should erect an altar for Baal. He will also erect an altar for Baal. Now, he asked for 2 bulls, a bull. Now, the prophet of Baal will have 1 bull. He will have his own bull. That the one that is either the prophet of Baal or him, that which of them, that the particular prophet that is able to call their God to send down fire to consume the bull will be seen as the true God in Israel and will be worshipped by everyone in Israel. It was simple. He asked Ahab to gather everyone in Mount Carmel, that the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah should be gathered at where? Mount Carmel. That he will represent the prophet of what? Yahweh. And that they should have a bull that is slaughtered and laid on an altar. This bull was to serve as a sacrifice, that the God that is able to bring fire to consume the bull laid on the altar will be seen as by the Israelites as the true God. Ahab accepted this contest. And so the first to make their altar and present their bull to their God was the prophets of Baal. They called on Baal. Baal could not send down fire to consume the bull. They even had to cut themselves with sword. It is their custom to cut themselves with sword so that blood will gush out and invoke their God. But nothing happened. Elijah was even taunting them that maybe their God was asleep or their God was aside, that they should ginger and wake their God up. Their God is a dead God. Their God did not answer them. Are we together? And so it was, and they did this until noon, and their God did not answer them. So it was already normal for them to quit and allow Oga Elijah, the prophet of God, to come and call fire from Yahweh to consume the bull. And so Elijah made a new altar because they had already destroyed the previous altar when they were doing their rubbish. Now Elijah asked for stones, 12 stones, to decorate the altar. And these 12 stones were to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. These stones were about the altar. They were around the altar. In this altar, Elijah also dug trenches. These trenches were big enough to take 2 moles of seedings if we were to use these trenches to plant. They were trenches, small holes around the altar. And he asked that 4 jars of water, not petrol or kerosene, 4 jars of water should be poured around the altar to fill up the trenches. And these jars of water, how many? 4 jars of water. Elijah asked that these 4 jars of water should be poured on the altar to fill up the trenches. They were to be poured how many times? 3 times. The 4 jars of water were poured how many times? 3 times. And so Elijah called on God to show himself to the Israelites that indeed he was the supreme God. And in no time, God sent down fire to consume the bulls, and the bull and the people around said, oh yes, God is God. God is thy Lord. They knew, they were convinced that indeed God is thy Lord. Are we together? That is God, Yahweh, was thy Lord of thinking wicked gods like Baal and Asherah. Are we together? Now, Asherah is a goddess. Asherah, goddess. Now, so as soon as this happened, Elijah of course had upper hand to instruct the Israelites, and Elijah told the Israelites to get him the 450 prophets of Baal. They got the 450 prophets of Baal, and Elijah took them to the brook of Kishon. To the brook of Kishon, where they were all destroyed. They were killed by Elijah. And afterwards, Elijah told Ahab that he should not worry, that it will rain now. And so Elijah went to the top of the mountain at Carmel and put his head in between his knees, that is downwards, facing behind him. Now, so this happened, and as he put his head in between his knees, facing the other side, he now asked the servant to look towards the sea 7 times. And the servants realized that on the 7th time there was a big hand, like the hand of God, coming out of the sea. And afterwards the clouds were darkened and it began to rain. And that was how Elijah showed the Israelites that indeed God is supreme. The supremacy of God was proven by Prophet Elijah, the Tishbite, at the Battle of Mount Carmel. Now, if you have any question as regards this topic, feel free to drop your question on the comments section, and we'll be glad to reply you. We'll be very, very glad to reply you. Drop your questions. We want you to pass your exams. Isaac Humanitarian Foundation is here for you with regards to education, with regards to health, and with regards to general welfare of everyone in the world. Our forte, our passion is the development of humanity, and in any way we can help, we will help you. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and I wish you success in your forthcoming SSE and POST-UTME exams. Thank you.